translating.
Yeah.
The awkward standing.
Gathering all the energy. Right.
We are Lara and Magda, and we will be moderating the event today. Before we start, I will just say a few words about the BAL project and also what this year's topic is. So maybe just to give a framework before we introduce our speakers. So BAL is a transdisciplinary project that connects and explores the art from Baltics and the Balkan region. Now it's the third edition already and is organized by the wonderful team from Improper and LT.art, Vienna. So the idea is that through different formats such as residency, exhibitions, the conference, of course, publication, we kind of try to open this field, exchange, communicate between these regions, which I think is very important, and it's a nice way to kind of come together. This year's topic dealt with the topic of fear, its origin, how it kind of looking back into history of fear, but also how it influences the current narrative. It's a very broad topic, but a very important one. So we are really looking forward to having discussions with the speakers to kind of delve into this kind of topic with you. So just very shortly.
Yeah, so today we're going to have 5 presentations and 6 people presenting, I think. So I'm going to introduce 3 first ones, and then after the break we're going to have the 2 other presentations. The first one is going to be Mejač from Estonia. She's a Vienna-based interdisciplinary artist working with camera-based mediums, performance and sound, as well as with various weavings in textual and spatial form. Currently she is studying in a PhD in a practice program at the Academy of Fine Arts, Vienna, and is a member of Golden Pixel Cooperative. Her artistic work is focused on text, plants, textile, storytelling, surplus and waste materials / thoughts in feminist and class-aware discourse. Second, we'll have Smirna Kulenović. She's an transdisciplinary artist, researcher, educator, and ritualist whose practice weaves art, ecology, and memory. Born in Sarajevo under siege, she explores how embodied rituals, plant intelligence, and ancestral practices heal landscapes and communities fractured by war, displacement, and ecological violence. Her ongoing PhD research for the Wounded Earth bridges ecosomatics, decolonial feminism, and ritual art, transforming collective wounds into acts of care and rerouting. And third presentation will be by Agne Bagdžūnaitė. She's an artist, curator, and a researcher whose work engages with methodologies grounded in people's history, feminist and queer ethnography, and critical theory. Her research focuses on labor history, with particular attention to women's work stories from the Soviet era at the 19th and desire in post-socialist Lithuania. So we are going to have 3 speakers, and if they have time, we can ask questions right away, but we'll have a general discussion after all the presenters to kind of connect this into one big discussion. So first one, Pilarin.
Hello, I'm Pilarin, and I'm going to present today research ongoing titled also Notes on Research, The Last Relic. Our relic is our freedom. Meie reliikvia on vabadus is a famous quote from the 1969 movie The Last Relic from Estonia, directed by Grigori Romanov. It is known to be one of the most popular films ever produced and for immediately acquiring a cult film status. Also, due to its sacrilegious content, it was prohibited to be shown in Italy and Latin America. Relic. An object surviving from an earlier time, especially one of historical interest, or a part of deceased holy person's body or belongings kept as an object of reverence, or a person or a thing that has survived from an earlier time but is now outmoded. For example, the supermodel has become an embarrassing relic from the early 1990s. Reliikvia. Püha säile, õigeusu ja katoliku kirikuis alalhoitav ja austatav säile pühakute ihust või nendega ühenduses olnud esemeist. Piltlikult eriti kallis mälestusese, kallite mälestustega seotu. See vana kell on meie perekonna reliikvia. What does it mean to say that our relic is our freedom? Või täpsemalt, meie reliikvia on vabadus. In both of the languages, it means something differently telling. In Estonian, relic is more sacred, miraculous, dead body of a saint, religion-related, or something for the upper class. It can also be a family heirloom. Both ways, it's a precious object, not an idea, to keep or attain. In English, it also has those meanings, but quite often, it is also paired with an outdated shine, a person or a thing that has survived from an earlier time, but is now outmoded. Is the freedom of a post-Soviet spaces outdated in the post-neoliberal necro-capitalistic world? Today, I wish to talk to you about two different but intertwined in-process case studies. One is the film, The Last Relic, that you saw the clip from, and the other is a trench in a swamp close to Tallinn in Baskula Bog. First, I recently came across a book, This is the Voice, that the human voice started its development in the swamp. He states that around 400 million years ago, when a fish found itself often landlocked in swamps during seasonal droughts between water and dry land, it developed through a random gene mutation a little pouch in the throat that could close and open, depending on the governing power, similar to the lungs. It allowed the fish to digest oxygen when on dry, but still survive when in water. This closing mechanism is the same one that our speech apparently relies on, like rib cage, two lungs, diaphragm. But apparently, heard the first thing similar to a voice, a prp 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 of a lungfish. I find it somehow very beautiful, maybe because I have always been a big fan of swamps, due its capacity to confuse land with water, and as an exciting place of melting and forming confusion. Also, the thought that something that allows us to speak developed from a crucial adaptation for survival in an area prone to hypoxia, low oxygen levels. I welcome this little numbered ways until you forget which way you came from. Two images melt into one and you might lose your way. I'm curious if also taking a different could be a possibility. More risky for sure, and one would have to be carried into hard coal yet. But at the same time, as peat, it is in the process of decomposing. An endless archive of 1,000 years of unprocessed matters, slowly fading away, but still. It definitely feels like a trench. One can easily feel that they are somehow cosplaying a soldier when they walk in it, or it becomes more undefined. Either the trench was dug there already as part of Peter the Great named land protection line around 1912 to 1917 as preparation for approaching Germans during the first, not second. What I find highly interesting about this story is when and how it surfaced. It took fire as a bog in recent years, mostly in various Reddit and Facebook pro-military lobby groups. When the expenses have been widely, land has been increasing, throwing out often farms with multi-generational histories. In south of Estonia, 2/3 of the whole Võrumaa county might become affected by it. Weird conflict subjects, the notorious military polygon Nursipalu in that region is not too far away from the movie set you saw the horses running on. So I guess I find it curious how that trench was widely unknown, full of false security, but now is suddenly something everyone sees in the landscape and talks about. Landscape and its meaning and value in constant transition. Our relic is our freedom. Meie reliikvia on vabadus. Is it something that this region can attain? Should we rather look for more context and landscape-based style of movement that might take us off the road, but down the high imperialist ideas of horse freedom? Thank you.
We have a microphone now also. Does anybody have questions? We have, but do you want to start maybe with? Yeah.
Thank you for the presentation. I was wondering maybe if you can share more general in your practice, like the methodology that you use, where you kind of combine, I think we saw now, the film history, like the environment, the like different aspects, and how do you see, what would you say that this kind of approach allows you to convey the message, or to kind of, how do you see this kind of methodology in terms of just being like to do like general research, or like historical, or
Thank you. Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, my methodology is very much working with the process. Also with the last video I showed about the swamp, it wasn't actually planned that my brother will fall off the bicycle. And he's fine. But it's somehow, I didn't like that he fell off the bicycle, of course, but somehow during the process of filming and going many times, returning to the same place, I always try to observe and also see what the place is telling me, or how the people around me are relating to the place. So I would say that my methodology is slow. And then in a sense of weaving, that is also a big part of my practice, it's kind of similar, that I start with a thread, I follow it, and sometimes different patterns appear without a plan from the beginning, and then I try to do my best to show all those complexities that get added with getting to know more historical facts or life itself somehow intervening, to stay open to that somehow.
Yeah, because I think you can really see many layers then of the process and the research, and thank you.
I hear that. There's a question from the...
First, thanks for the presentation. I'm sorry I'm late a little bit, but then immediately when I come, I see you totally fit with the costume that you wear now. And watching this actor now, like you are twins.
Yes,
and
yeah,
beautiful. So why you choose tonight? Okay, I cannot ask question related to the work because I need to process what you are doing. But what it's now this presentation of you in this moment, wearing first wig, putting wig out, and be similar that I can imagine you in the movie right now.
Perfect.
So why you choose this?
I think it's very much related to the context now here with this presentation, because so far I know there's one Estonian somewhere in the crowd, and I just also I was thinking of ways how to bring the movie here, because in the region, and I assume also in Latvia, I would be curious about Lithuania, because there was no actors cast from there for the lead roles. It's like a film that everyone knows. So I was also curious of playing with different layers, and also because the film is offensively heteronormative and gender role based, where the blonde woman is the innocent lamb and the symbol of freedom, and then you have this honest guy looking for the big truth. I also was curious of combining those two characters, of at the beginning looking like one and then changing to the other, because I think that's somehow, I feel better than even talking about such rigid roles.
I just wanted to kind of reflect as swamps in the Baltic region is a thing for us. Not only I think it's kind of the way we live, but also it gets into our personalities. And it's an interesting place, which in the early times, it was one of the main things which could defend our castles and everything from people, from aggressors that we are seeing happening right now also. So I just wanted to maybe, and later in the discussions, I would turn your presentation more in nowadays. Just how do you see yourself in these movies, which are 50 years ago, done 50 years ago? How do you, because I have a lot of connection with this, because of they are speaking in beautiful lyrical words, and yes, of course, it's kind of basic in the 60s, 70s notion of film. In the Soviet times, also we have to consider it's not Kubrick, or it's quite a different kind of film. So what do you see of your parts where you find some kind of home feel? I don't know, some answers, because I sometimes find answers in these kind of movies also about freedom and what is freedom then and now. We have a lot of freedom, but how do we feel about it?
It's swamps.
Swamps?
Yeah. This in the beginning that you said, I'm fascinated with the swamp.
Oh yeah, so the swamp, yeah. Yeah.
What people thinking that is this? She's sorry, but I don't understand.
Yes. So this is the...
It's a beautiful but scary thing.
Yeah, so this is one of the swamps that I was also talking about, and usually you have also like these roads because you might sink into the land. Now I forget a bit about the question, but the connections with, I like to unearth some old cultural stories and see how much is there like parallels. So I think with this film also, because it's like this cult film that you have so many sayings from, that became like this, that people that even don't or haven't watched the film would know this as a saying, like certain like this, our relic is our freedom, or certain kind of things. I think the movie is very present on daily life, but I think it's not maybe always done justice how political it actually was, and how political was the process of making it. And because at the end of the film, it also ends with, not with the scene where what was at the beginning, that it just destroyed the relic, but it also ends with a song where it says that we have to rethink what a relic could be. So I find it like very current to the times that we live at the moment, because also we are not anymore in the 90s where, to my eyes or my observation, one of the main goals was to be part of the Western Europe, or where we are placed now, and get away as far away as possible from the Soviet Union past, but also from each other, living in Baltic or more in the north. So I think like these ideas of like what freedom was in the 90s and what it is now is for me like a very big question, because I think a lot of those things that we needed to secure certain independence and making allies, we also should think until what limit and with whom and on what cost. So that's also why I wanted to return to this film. Yeah.
Thank you. I think we're out of time for now.
But we will continue
Yes.
later.
So then, and our second speaker is Smirna Kulenović. We'll give a few minutes to prepare.
experiment with the fear in the room. So the first time that it's open is going to be now, and there can be one person drinking, but you don't know what it is. But I'm going to drink with you. And we make like a živjeli, if you want. So whoever is the bravest, okay. Oh, what? Okay, you three, okay, but who is the first? He was the first, you were the first, yes. But I have 1 more liter. Okay, but I remembered you were the second and you were the third. Don't remember. And for the rest, there's 1 more liter. So you can choose one of the 3. Okay. Cheers. Živjeli. In front of the camera to drink it. Thank you. Okay.
It's not so easy.
Thank you. So this will be the longest durational experiment. Let's see what happens to both of us. And then we have the second person who will drink. I will tell you later when the bar is open again. It will be, you will kind of know what it is. And then the third person, you will know what it is. So we see. So as I start, my name is Smirna Kulenović, and one of the methods that I work with as an artist is embodied research. So it's what we are trying to do now. I'm also working with not only theoretical idea of what it means to really digest fear, to digest trauma, to digest landscapes. And for that reason, I also work with a lot of experiments in performative ways or non-performative ways on myself and others. We will talk about ethics also later. So my today's topic is one of the chapters of the PhD that I'm currently doing at the Academy of Fine Arts in Berlin, and the title of my work is Witchcraft for the Wounded Earth. It's a PhD in practice. That means we are using art as a research method. So not just theory, but also our own practice and focusing on embodied research. I would like to start with a poem that I wrote that is also within the publication. That's called Sampler Plate. Sampler Plate. What a combination, she said, like we were a riddle that she couldn't Google. Like war had a flavor and we were the sampler plate. Bosnian, Persian. She said it again, slow, like tasting something forbidden. What is it? My mother sweeping bones of balconies in Sarajevo with radio static still in her ears, or our grandfather praying in calligraphy and hiding poetry in the folds of his chador. The commons is the soup we made when there was no soup. War is not backstory, it's ingredient. It's the way my aunt sets the table with too much food. It's the reason we watch clouds for drones and forests for landmines. We are not exotic, we are evidence. This body is a material archive. This tongue has 2 alphabets and no apology. It's what's left when the world tries to unmake you and you come back with pomegranate salad. Go, count the dead, then have a tea break. Don't forget the rose petals. That's the end. So I would love to start also speaking about a very beautiful species that lives in my country, in Bosnia. It's a blue butterfly. And one of the reasons I started my research in this direction of asking myself how to really archive the trauma and the residues of trauma that live in the land, that live in all the species during and after the wars and conflicts, that not just referring to the ones in the 90s, but constantly happening in our Balkan Peninsula. I would like to begin with a story about the blue butterflies. It's a true story, though it sounds like a myth. It's a story from the land that taught me everything I know about fear and about listening. After the genocide in Bosnia, when we were still counting our missing fathers, brothers, and sisters, no one knew where to dig. The earth was silent, or so it seemed. The perpetrators had been careful. They dug deep. They covered the mass graves with stones and leaves and metal so that even the satellites could not find them. They moved bodies from one grave to another, trying to confuse both the machines and the memory. But the earth remembered. Years passed, and then something strange began to happen. In villages near Srebrenica, Konjic, and Nevesinje, people began to notice swarms of blue butterflies, actually clouds of blue butterflies, shimmering around the villages, around the lands. The butterflies were gathering always in the same places at the exact same time of the year. They were always hovering low, always near the patches of a certain silvery plant that grew in these areas, which is Artemisia, which we call in Bosnian a very well-known plant called pelin. In English, it's wormwood. We also make a very famous drink out of pelin, but that's not what you were drinking. But wormwood, this plant that the butterflies were attracted to, it's a bitter herb. Our grandmothers used it to cleanse the body of poison, to keep the evil spirits from entering the house, and to heal the stomach after eating something difficult. It is said that wormwood grows where the earth has suffered, where something must be remembered. And these butterflies, they feed only on that plant, their host and their only nourishment. The scientists later said that the mass graves had changed the chemistry of the soil, and that the decomposition of the bodies has raised the nutrient levels within the soil, which woke up the sleeping seeds of Artemisia, which is also commonly known as a weed. People are trying to extinguish it. So then, when the wormwood blossomed, the blue butterflies came to feed on the wormwood. But we know that that wasn't all. One of the investigators of the mass graves, Amor Mašović, he said of a summer that was so hot that even the sludge of the Drina River cracked open. He said, I quote, "It was as if the earth wanted to release these remains after hiding them for so long." 300 mass graves were found by following the blue butterfly. 300. Each one was a wound that the land refused to keep secret any longer. So in Bosnia, we say that when the dead cannot speak, the plants will. When the plants bloom in silence, even the butterflies carry the message of the dead. So when I go to these sites to gather the plants and to make paper, to make offerings, and to listen, I remember these blue butterflies because they were the first archivists, they were the first witnesses, the first ones to show us that the dead were not gone, but they had simply changed their form, and now they live perhaps as this plant. And I remember that the work I do is not mine alone, it is also belonging to them, to the butterflies and to the bitter wormwood and to the women who brewed it as medicine for hundreds of years in the Balkans, and to the earth that still trembles with the memory of mass graves. So tonight, when I speak of the alchemy of fear, we know that we are really speaking about that trembling of all the species together, about how the soil dreams and how everything can bloom into something that shows us the way. So where this work comes from, the location you see here, it's near Srebrenica, very well known internationally, but it's one of the locations that were found later in Čančari. Also thanks to one of the helpers was this blue butterfly. To understand better like what I'm doing and why I'm putting this aspect of the memory into my research, also I want to explain that I was born during the siege of Sarajevo, so the childhood playgrounds for me were mostly minefields or mass graves, and the first memories I have of positive images, because the city Sarajevo, as you know probably, was completely destroyed. We used to go have picnic in the nature, and oftentimes we would have picnics near landmine fields, and I did not understand that that was weird as a child. And only later this feeling of that ghosts that live within the nature that I could not really explain to myself as a child. That feeling of those ghosts present kept haunting me, and I started wanting to know more through my artistic research. And so I start to pose this question: what does it really mean not to run away from fear? Because we are taught that in the Balkans, especially in Bosnia. We are taught that if we are young artists, we need to forget the war and, you know, start doing something else and focus on different topics. And I ask myself, what does it really mean to digest the fear and to digest toxicity? What is even toxicity? So what if toxicity is also a teacher? And what if the poisons of our histories, which are chemical, emotional, and political, are asking for digestion? And in the Balkan post-war landscapes, toxicity is obviously everywhere, in the contaminated rivers, in the iron of the bullet soil, in the plants that learn how to grow on top of mass graves, plants that medicine once feared and that refused domestication. So modern botany calls them weeds or poisonous species, but in traditional knowledge they are threshold plants. They are messengers between what kills and what heals, asking us to reimagine our relationship with what we call toxic. As Stacy Alaimo reminds us in the bodily natures, our bodies are transcorporeal, porous, entangled with pollutants, soils, and atmospheres. There is no outside to toxicity because it circulates through us. And Astrida Neymanis explains this in The Bodies of Water, writing that to be a body is to be a leaky vessel in a leaking world. We are already made of what we fear to touch. So I ask, what would it mean to digest toxicity rather than deny it, and to metabolize fear into knowledge? In my work, digestion becomes an ecosomatic method and a way of embodying the wounds of the land through a slow and chemical sensual transformation. So in this moment, I would like to open the bar for the second time.
Second person?
Yes.
I'm not afraid.
Bosnian. It's not Pelin, but
Which
it's
one?
okay.
Yeah.
What you want?
Whichever. Here's less.
Less.
Save that.
Okay.
Živjeli.
Živjeli.
Wow.
It's not so easy.
It's like vitamin D. You know the drop.
It's
It's really. I never drink this. It's not really the Boston way, but it's interesting.
it's a yes.
Now I got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very welcome. It's the same like before. I'm not changing.
You like it. I think I know what it is.
Okay. Let's see. We can bet maybe after the. So, as we said, even the plants that we call poisonous are reminding us of this paradox, which Donna Haraway calls staying with the trouble. We are very, very used to that in the Balkans, I would say, remaining with complexity rather than seeking simple ways. And wormwood, for instance, is healing the stomach when taken in trace amounts, but it burns our stomach when consumed without respect. And in this way, fear and healing are sharing exactly the same root system. And in ecosomatic practice, as Leigh Foster writes, the body is not an instrument of knowledge, but its very sight. To digest is to think through matter, and to let toxicity pass through the gut of awareness until it transforms. So I no longer ask how to cleanse or heal the land, but how to listen to what is poisonous and what it is trying to teach us. How can we learn from what refuses to be tamed, such as weeds, as this one? In this particular photo, I'm showing you the site of my research that is also related to the next artwork where I question this topic, which is called Silence of the Land. This site is one of the unexcavated mass graves, also near Srebrenica, near Čančari. There is endless places. And I want to also start with a personal story, because when I was a child growing up in Bosnia, I basically my parents did not understand that it's quite difficult to bring children to mass grave sites, as many parents did not understand after the war. But we were looking for the body of my uncle, so one of my first memories of going to nature was standing on the edges of open holes where you had hundreds of dead bodies. One of the first things I remembered from those holes was the smell and the wild flowers. And I would often distract myself from the immensity of that fear and pain by picking up wild flowers from those sites. We never found the body of my uncle, and all my life I've been trying to find a way to commemorate him and to kind of trace his body. So I started working with the plants that grow on the mass grave sites, and in especially those that are not excavated, because in Bosnia still a lot of places we know that the bodies are there, but they're too afraid, the politicians are often too afraid to start digging because it would get more people in trouble. So we try to keep things as they are, so we can say that only the plants are actually remembering and archiving those bodies. So I start my process by going to these sites that are not yet excavated, and I collect plants that grow there, not only toxic or healing plants, but all plants that have fibers that I can later turn into paper, and that is the work that I've been creating in the past 2 years, which is called Silence of the Land, and it's a series of handmade papers done with plants that grow on all the unexcavated mass grave sites. So it's a very long process. It's really a meditative, performative process in itself to bring the plants from the location, to post-process them in a way, to ferment them for many hours, and also to, I use these traditional tools which are usually done with rocks. You create a paste out of them, such as the one that you can see here. It takes weeks and weeks to create this paste that is ready to be mixed with water, and then when you mix it with water it can create a plant pulp out of which you can make paper. So as you see on the left, it's a sort of an alchemy, an alchemical process to arrive from this memory into the sheet of paper that you can still see. It's actually shown as a part of this program at the moment in Improper Walls Gallery in Vienna. And I'm making at the moment a book as well with where I mapped all the different locations where the unexcavated mass graves are, with different types of paper that remember, and this is just one of the examples that is shown right now, another one also in Rome, in Matatoio this month as well. Working with this paper has been, in a way, very therapeutic for me personally, besides this very material-based research. It's a way to really not only digest, but engage with the materiality of someone who is dead, and what does that mean, the passing of material from one to another, arriving to plant, arriving to paper residues with what refuses closure. So moving from paper, I also work with the materiality of clay. This is clay found, Bosnia is very rich with clay. This is clay also found nearby Srebrenica. Srebrenica is also known as a site where water contains a very healing iron metal, and a lot of healing minerals exist in the soil there. So there is a lot of also rich clay sites, and I started collecting them as well, asking what this clay can turn into and how I can work with this as a material. So in this moment also what you see here is clay from the site. This site is found around 300 meters away from one of the mass graves. And it's actually kaolin, I think in English, the type of clay that nowadays people use to heal their digestive systems. So it's like a very famous thing. You can buy it in the pharmacy, basically. It's called Heilerde in German. So finally we have this as well, quite close to the mass grave sites. And I've been experimenting with this clay in multiple forms, from making performances and rituals where we try to digest this history by taking this clay that really does calm down your stomach. If you ate something bad, you can test it on yourself. I've been collecting it for quite a few years, also testing now and trying to make different objects with it, such as this one, such as objects that I use for tea ceremonies, where we work with plants and also soils, trying to remember what it means to drink from such a pot. Also objects such as bowls through which we make bread, because also cooking is one of the methods of research that has been passed on to us in the Balkans for many, many generations, actually. So through multiple methods, and one of them, as you can see, is this one here. So for me, it was an interesting experiment of always who wants to drink something before they know what it is, and then after you know, do you actually want to drink it more or less? I can tell you I've been drinking it for 2 years, nothing happened so far. But I have a good digestive system. So now the bar is open one more time. If you still stay with your decision.
Okay. First, thanks. And I really want to say sorry for everything.
So I will continue with a poem also that is, you can find it in the text. It's called Fire Safety Regulations. I taught myself to burn less for you to be safe enough. I will not bow to your fire alarms in your disinfected halls. I am fire. I'm a rock. I am rage. I am lava. You want my words softened, my heat cooled, my body stilled, my roots untangled, my tongue split from my people. But you can't get rid of me. I do not let you steal my forest, my soil, my mother tongue. You have already paved over enough of what is sacred. In Europe, they want to teach me how to sit at their tables, how to fold myself neatly into shapes that make you comfortable. But we do not fold, we do not fit. We burn, we resist, we persist. And I remember our lands, our trees, our seas, our roots, crazy, wild, untamed. Together, we did not burn. We are on fire. And now another story about a plant called smreka. It's juniper in English. There's a tradition from Montenegro and southern Serbia of a song about this plant that is usually sung around New Year. And the text of this song says, Smreko, smreko, zimzelena, čuvaj kuću od mrtvoga sjena. Dimi gori, miris širi, dušu vodi, strah umiri. Which means, juniper, juniper, evergreen, guard the house from the shadow of the dead. Smoke, burn, spread your scent, guide the soul, and calm the fear. In the Balkans, every beginning and an ending smells like juniper. Smreka, we call it, a name that already sounds like smoke. Long before the churches or laboratories, women burned juniper wood when fear entered the house. When plague came, or war, or death, they didn't call the priest, they called the smoke. They opened every window and every door and let the blue-gray breath of juniper pass through the rooms, carrying away what should no longer stay. It was a boundary plant between the living and the dead, between what is seen and what is unseen. So when a person died, the smoke of juniper was waved around their body to clear the way for the soul to travel. When a child was born, the same smoke was used to welcome them into the world. There's an old folk belief written in the archives of witchcraft in southern Serbia that if you plant a juniper by your doorstep, any spirit who comes to your house must stop and count all the tiny leaves before she can enter. The counting of these tiny leaves takes so long that the spirit gives up and your house remains safe. The scholars often call it superstition, but I call it the politics of attention. It's the idea that before you cross into someone's home, someone's memory and someone's trauma, you must stop to count, you must take time, you must notice every leaf, and you must ask permission to enter. This is what I try to do in my work, to count every leaf of history before touching it, and to move only when it moves with me. From the perspective of ecosomatics, this is an ethics of attunement. Scholars like Erin Manning and Lisa Nelson speak of somatic attention, how perception itself can become a gesture of care. Juniper, this plant, teaches us the same lesson through the scent and smoke, how to move slowly enough for the invisible to show itself. Because this plant doesn't shout, it simply exhales, and it fills the space between other things. It teaches us about transcorporality, the way that the breath and the smoke and matter move through the bodies, changing their chemistry, their memory, and their relation. I would have loved to also burn this, but it's impossible in this particular situation. In the way, Juniper is also feminist. It refuses the hierarchy between human and non-human, between subject and object. Its smoke equalizes, it enters lungs and walls alike, and it transforms everything it touches into relation. And I want to end with the prototypes that I'm currently making for the new work. These are prototypes of kites that we will fly in this summer, working with a colleague that is a very great expert on kites, Anna. We are trying to imagine a kite, a design of a kite that will be flown, made out of the papers that we made out of the plants that grow on the mass graves. And this summer we are planning to make a performance in Bosnia together with the people who live around the locations, and to transform those plants into the paper and then put them back up into the sky to again remind ourselves of those blue butterflies also that were teaching us to find the way and to open the path to see into the history and beyond. What is interesting about that is that nobody came there to destroy the monument because they didn't understand it's a monument. And usually in Bosnia, all kinds of rock-based sculptures, they're getting demolished all the time if they have something to do with the war. So yeah, I think we need to give a little bit more space for the non-human. And in Europe, it's also easy, final remark, in Europe it's easier to talk about this because at the moment it's very trendy to be a third world country female artist who is working with war. And maybe 3 years ago it wasn't, so I'm also, like now it's very popular to talk about it and there's so many curators interested in it, but 2 years ago people were telling me, why are you doing this? You know, just do something else, you know, war is over. So that's my final answer, thank you.
Just before we go, what was in the, with the
I thought you understood. It was the clay from near Srebrenica, from one of the unexcavated mass grave sites, near 300 meters away, so not directly, but yes, thank you.
Okay. Okay, and now we have our first speaker, Agda. Yes.
a different, it's a bit a different approach. My topic is going towards the environmental studies. At the same time, I'm researching the hydroelectric plant and the building of it during 1953, the Stalin era in Kaunas in Lithuania, where actually my grandfather built it, and so it's also a part of my personal history. But now let's move to the imaginary archive. The project, the research that I started 2016, let's say. So researching labor, memory, and imagination in post-Soviet Lithuania. So I said that it's going to be a performative lecture, which is, I lied. So actually I changed my mind because, yeah, I just recently did some performances related to the topic and to my research, and sort of felt tired a bit of it, and kind of wanting to kind of find another way of already continuing it. So so more or less I will present you my research from this like very biographical perspective, at the same time also a bit more academic way to do it. So in 2016, while working on my MA thesis in Vytautas Magnus University, I started collecting interviews with women workers, and from different generations. I spoke with women from textile factories, food production, service sector, and at that time I kind of grounded my research on Foucault's idea of neoliberal subject and Carol Pateman's theory of the patriarchal contract.
Sorry, can you a little bit louder?
Sorry,
just
yeah.
a little bit, because I try to read from your lips.
Sorry, yes, okay. So, yes, so first I used Michel Foucault's and Carol Pateman's theories to kind of explore how the seemingly neutral, freely contracting economic civil subject is immersed in gendered and class power relations. And in order to kind of define the feminization process, I used the definition of patriarchal contract. And one of the examples is the marriage contract for women. So based on Pateman's theory, the marriage is kind of, marriage contract comes from slavery contract, even historically. So for me, it was interesting to kind of link those analyses together, and kind of analysis of neoliberal individual. Those individual freedom is grounded on others' restricted rights, and Pateman's marriage contract, which is based on the slavery contract. And so I merged it and kind of tried to kind of do a materialist analysis of gender exploitation, which is explained by kind of the devaluation of women's reproductive work. And looking at those analysis, actually I applied it towards the politics of transition during the 90s, what was happening in the 90s in terms of labor, workers' rights, and also reproductive labor and women's stories. I kind of came up with this idea that it's not my original idea. There are many theoreticians who who do that as well, but it was a kind of acceptable idea that women should go back to their homes, back to from all this work, because the kind of all the work in the industry was very much devalued, and people were losing their jobs. Therefore, kind of saying that like it's okay that women would go back to the homes, to this very traditional reproductive labor, because of this collapse of industrial industry, like of the whole Soviet industry that we had. So like basically one by one the factories were closing and going bankrupt. And for me it was also very interesting this analysis of let's say light industry, what the Soviets called light industry. And this is also very much connected towards like how women's labor is devalued because of they called, for example, textile industry or textile factories as a light industry. But in terms of like labor and in terms of how intense it is and how poisonous and the whole labor conditions, it's at all not light. So for me it was also this connection very interesting. And I kind of in parallel to my collecting the interviews, I also had this activist experience, and not that much at this moment, but so my research was also shaped through activism. And in 2016 I took part in protests against the new labor code. So for me everything is related to labor. And so new labor code in Lithuania was also related to kind of liberalizing it and including, for example, these articles such as 0 hours contracts. And so we decided that as a collective, actually, in Kaunas, we decided to occupy the stairs of the government. And we sort of we were camping there for a week or two in the, here is the the kind of photo of camping site, by the doors of the main government building. And it was actually an experience that kind of shaped my further kind of activist activities and also work, because I also participated in establishing such a entities, I don't know, like social center EMA in Kaunas, GPB in this life is too expensive is in English. That's the slogan that we also were using for the protests. And sorry, I will switch off. It's annoying. And also the May 1st Labor Union, which was established later after the protests. So all those names, like Social Center Emma, for example, because Emma Goldman was actually from Kaunas, and she is this very famous anarchist thinker. We know her from United States, but actually she was born in Kaunas. And no memory, no monument or anything is actually there in the city. So we decided that we're gonna call the social center in Emma's name. And then also this May 1st labor union is also kind of a first labor union that is for precarious workers. So it includes all the workers, like platform workers, as well as students, freelancers, and there is a branch of art workers as well. So all this is kind of, all these names are also dedicated to this sort of trying to decolonize the actual left in Lithuania and the idea of what is left. Because in our country, or I don't know, in Baltics probably in general, there is still a sin to be on that side, you know, on the left, and what it means. This concept is kind of, in many people's minds, still very much connected to the Soviet Union, and after the war started in Ukraine, is now it's much more even also connected to the Russia. So basically, you're also Russian agents. So you kind of always in this, when you're on the left, you're always in between the Soros agents or Putin's agents. So you have to, the spectrum is quite interesting on one side or the other. So after this, this is, you see the social center Emma, and also the protest of the May 1st union together supporting the Turkish builders, construction workers of the main stadium in Kaunas, who were not paid. So after this kind of period of very intense activism, I kind of continued my academic journey, you can say, to Central European University. Another interesting, so I am Soros agent, no? Studying gender studies in Budapest. It was the last year when the CEU was in Budapest, and then it was, it had to move to Vienna now. And so in CEU, I kind of deepened my research on kind of Soviet labor structures and gender politics, especially focusing on the complexities of women's participation in the labor market and the structures of the regime, such as women's councils and labor unions. And at the university, I was kind of exposed to the colonial and non-linear historical approaches. So I started to think what it means to kind of have these interviews and to interview people and to talk to them, and what these stories actually contain, and how I'm supposed to interact with it. Because it's kind of also, I was moving away from this very classical, of course, feminist thinking, like in a way that it is men against women, and it's what beyond, it's much more, and it's about relations. So the kind of the like social reproduction theory was my kind of sort of basis for that, where I realized that, like, okay, capitalism doesn't exist only within the walls of like workplace, or you know, it goes far beyond and everywhere, and it's like very aggressive. So I and also what I realized at the moment when I was in CEU, that like I am not a very like this classical academician, where it's like I continue because my background is actually in painting. So basically I started from painting, and then I decided that I don't want to have anything in common with arts especially the art scene. I was kind of disappointed and went into political studies. So this was my path towards this idea of what is imaginary archive. And yeah, and my thesis in the CU was called Multiplied Burdens or Honorable Duty, Women's Councils in Soviet Lithuania, 1985-88. So yes, and further in, I had this kind of idea that I'm gonna shape these interviews as an open dialogue, because there is a huge problem, I would think globally as well, but in Lithuania, that like we don't actually, we're not in dialogue with this older generation, and it's very hard to reach them, and how we talk with them, what is the way to actually kind of navigate these differences that we are now, like either they're fake or are they fake, or how we think. And I sort of went deeper into this kind of Ariela Azulai's concept of potential history, of how we should interact with like what is documented, and also Claire Hemming's idea of this imaginary archive. So basically, in her name, I called my project as Imaginary Archive, and so I prefer to view my research as part of this potential history, as articulated by Ariela A. Azulai, challenging the discipline of history's boundaries and its commitment to an imperial neutral temporality. And Azulai argues that history, as it's traditionally written and institutionalized, is deeply tied to imperial violence, meaning the way history is documented tends to legitimize colonial conquest, slavery, and domination. So instead of seeing the past as something finished and neatly packaged into facts or narratives, Azulai introduces potential history as a method of engaging with the past differently. And then in terms of Claire Hemmings, she developed kind of a methodology known as the Imaginary Archive, and this methodology establishes a relationship with historical figures and their political sentiments based on the researcher's own political passions and contemporary political questions. So I kind of try to also, even though when I'm doing the interviews with the women workers, I'm not really like trying to oppose them. I'm just letting them to speak and try to tell their story. But when the interview is finished and I have this material, I will always think or do something with it in terms of not to offend the speaker that I spoke with, but to kind of rethink of how at the end it can be open-ended. So how it can open these contemporary questions, and what it means to be, nostalgic towards the Soviet Union, or what it means to be tired of today's insecurities, So all this I try to question, and one of the projects that I did also was a book publication. It was called Before and After, where I went to this Curonian spit called Neringa now, and it was at Nida Art Colony, and I spoke, it was actually during the COVID, and I had to do the interviews and about the resort. It's a resort area now, and it's very small, so I had to deal also with these very ethical questions, because it's like, it's really small. When I realized that it's small, it's like talking with 7 already women, and I noticed that they know each other very well, and they basically, so if I expose it to the publication, there's gonna be trouble, because they know each other and they're gonna recognize each other. So I tried to, I don't know if I succeeded, but actually this is the publication where I also include my own personal biographical pictures. And the thing is that I made it as a whole narrative, like in one. And I had a lot of discussions with other academics and people. It's like, how should I navigate this through? Because you have this stories that are personal stories, but how to make it, you know, a narrative that would be a micro narrative, but at the same time would tell the story in its own way, but not how you shouldn't, like, what is the way to, it's like, okay, you change the names, but still, you know, you see these stories, because I still wanted to present it to the people there, and to kind of have this conversation with those women, and also with the people who live there, about the changes the region actually experienced through the time in the 90s, what it meant to kind of serve the German tourists, and but at the same time, yeah, not to kind of make it this kind of a gossiping, conflicting area. So for me, I chose the one way. I don't know. I don't think it was a very good way. It was maybe a mistake, but yeah, it's another story. Also, I made a sound installation, which was called Women's Voices, Stories from Kaunas Textile Industry, collaborating with the sound artist, Ugne Makselytė, and we made it into this installation in the Kaunas Pictures Gallery. So it's also always, I want to do it very local, and I prefer, like, to do local and to make it in dialogue with those women who I interviewed. So basically they always come. And I also had a conversation with the women in Nida who came to the presentation of the publication. So it's always this kind of a process and open dialogue that I stated. So it's not only like empty words. I tried to kind of stick to this ethics, and there's always, I don't think they always happy about what comes out from the stories they tell, and we have also this exchange that not necessarily is very warm, or it's also about disagreeing. So it's not that, you know, smooth. But what I found in the interviews is so sort of allowing free storytelling revealed how women's memories expand beyond official historical versions, of course, and they blend personal emotions with broader political changes. Sometimes unconsciously, imagination become crucial, and it lets us to reclaim these silence experiences and understand history not as a frozen past, but as something alive, emotional, and still shaping our present. So you must live honestly. Well, yes. And what you have, share it. To tell the truth, if I have a lot, I share it. I try to share my fears. I had so many of them. I tried to share them by keeping silent. I thought everyone would understand why I was silent. I learned to do that because of those times. But by then, I had already learned from her not to waste words. I saw my father doing the same, and now I think maybe it wasn't only because he was a man. So there was this cousin in my family. Let's say he got cancer. He was divorced from his wife, lived in Ukmergė, divorced. But they both drank a lot. Then they separated completely, and then the things got very bad. But later he got better. The cancer turned out not to be so terrible afterwards. You see, I would go where I saw help was needed. So you understand, I would show up where I saw someone needed help, and the person would change. You have to think of others, not yourself, like it used to be. Help others. I keep comparing, thinking, did people used to help each other more in the past? I think about empathy, though I don't know if one should even think about empathy when you want to help others. No one needs empathy. They need help. They need connection. They need a crack to reach through. That's what this is about, helping others. I never eat the tastiest bite. I give it away. That's just who I am. I eat what's left. Believe me, I don't choose the prettier piece. I can eat anything. Whatever is left, it'll do for me. My God, that's how you live. And then it's very peaceful. And then you don't know where your luck comes from. And others envy you, saying, how have you managed to keep working all these years? Well, I work. I don't know. It's very important to emphasize the words don't know. I miss it sometimes. I think I'll emphasize it this time, but not because I'm upset about not knowing something. Maybe it's a midlife crisis, or I've merged with the global crisis, and there is no boundary anymore. Especially Trump helped me understand that it's not necessary to know, but knowing isn't essential. And then the conversation turns to Soviet times. Once some people came from somewhere. They asked me, so what bad things can you say about that time? And me? Nothing. What bad can I say about that time? I can say that now I know even less what to say about the fact that we are building fences and walls, that we've withdrawn from the anti-personal mind ban convention, that former neo-Nazi is the chairman of the Conservative Party, that Israel's minister says he won the war, that Putin will never be arrested, that almost all of Europe is now ruled by the radical right. What can I say about the fact that my parents refused psychotherapy, that the N-word is still widely used in my parents' generation vocabulary, that living a good life still means a man, a woman, and 2 children, that I don't have children, that I'm afraid to cross the overpass in Kaunas at night that leads home, that fears multiply in the dark. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I brought some candy.
Yeah, I wanted to ask.
So this is the classical, actually from Soviet time candies.
Yeah. We have time for one question if
Aye.
you want to just, or you can go. I mean, we can just go. Yeah. Yes.
If somebody else wants, because of course Boris complained that I all the time ask something, but I really want the atmosphere of dialogue, yeah? So I really want to say thanks. Thanks for the, I try to hear you and I hear you. But one of the things that I really like is that you put the issue about the labor rights and particularly for the women. And please, I really like and support you to do invisible archive to be really visible with these stories, yeah? Because you can use different method in digital world and to make digital archive, because one of the stuff that I think it really we cannot hear this story, nobody will tell this story what you collect now. But I'm curious when you mention this transgenerational gap. What is your experience and about which generation you talk?
So basically, I'm talking about people who grew up during the Soviet time and worked during the Soviet time, and now they have to kind of adopt, or like through the 90s, they had to adopt the new system. And for them, that's the generation I mostly talk that is mostly problematic in the way that...
Our parents, for example, huh?
Yeah.
60, 70 years.
Yes.
Ah, okay.
Yes. Even like 55, you can say.
No, come on, this is us.
No, but that's... yeah.
Don't die now.
But mainly, yes, 60, 70 is that generation that kind of always seems struggling to see what is good now, like what I'm getting from this, and this is the... Sorry, I forgot to show the my way of yeah. This is the performances I did. Talking about yeah, this dialogue. Yeah, sorry, I missed all that.
Maybe I just have one quick question and then we have a break. It was really interesting when you said how hard it is to approach these topics in post-Soviet context with labor and socialist ideas. And it was really interesting because I was in Prague during their elections a few weeks ago, and it was a similar topic of who to vote for. Are they pro-Russians? Are the left parties pro-Russians? So then I was thinking of how hard it is in these post-Soviet countries to talk about these topics, and also politically how to kind of how to have options on the left because of that. So this was really interesting, and I wanted to know how, if you could a little bit expand about this, also in terms of your practice and how it is perceived and what the feedback is, because you deal with these topics, and yeah.
Yeah, so basically labor rights, or like workers' rights, or like working class is a sort of forbidden, not forbidden, but like not very interesting term to delve into. And so when you start talking about it, it is hard, and at the same time, you know, when they're saying it's like, oh my God, why you're like calling yourself May 1st labor union? It's crazy, you know, it's May 1st, it's a Soviet celebration, but it's not Soviet celebration. It's so all this kind of when you're trying to tell a story and again prove that you're not an elephant. It is, well, it is a kind of exercise in a way, and I think it's still worth to tell, because you see a little bit of progress there, especially like in younger generation when they go to the abroad to see that other left still exists, you know, and all kinds of left people exist. So they come back, and then you see a little bit more and more support of these kind of ideas and trying to.
Option that there's like in the future that it goes into that direction more, or
Well, from today's context, I was like, I don't know. No, yeah, let's see. But the future from my perspective is quite dark.
yeah. Thank you. Maybe we can return to that then in our discussion. But now we have a short break. And we return with 2 more speakers. 5 minutes then, just to have coffee and yeah. Svaki ima prezentaciju 15 minuta.
When they finish, they
Svaki
will
ima
be on.
nešto drugo, neko drugo.
Znači svako je trebalo 5 minuta da se napravi.
We would just need to turn this on, and you know how this. You turn it on and it's going.
Da vidim šta radim. Jeste vidio ovdje film?
Turn on both of them
Vidim
at the
se.
same time.
Okay.
This and this.
Onda stavim sjaj da se osjećam lepo.
It's okay, it doesn't work, I'll just give them. They will not talk much.
Pola sata. Mislim, tako su mi rekli. Ako bude, gledat ću da ne prelazim, imam telefon pored, ali imam 30 slajdova i gledat ću da idem brzo. Mislim, dopunjavaju se. Ne davim ja puno. Ja brzo pričam i glasno i završim. Kafa, to nije loša ideja. Hoću. Nema veze, daj što daš. Could we start? Možemo. Roberte, zaboravi za kafu. Ili može da je pijem usput. Sad, samo da uzem ja. Imaću je pored sebe, da. To, nema veze, daj to. Može, top. Odlično. Hvala. Sad. Idemo live. Is this a clean cup? Ovo čista čaša. Yes.
Researcher and educator from Belgrade, and she is currently based in Bratislava, where she is currently working on her PhD in art theory with a research topic feminist interpretations in contemporary textile and fiber art. And she will probably tell more about it in her presentation. And after Elisaveta, we will welcome Gods Entertainment, who are interdisciplinary artist collective from Vienna that has been active in the fields of performance, happenings, visual art and sound since its founding in 2005. They address political and social issues of our time by creating interactive, often provocative works that challenge existing art forms in social structures. So yeah, we will keep the same format, some short questions after, and then joint discussion in the end.
Thank you, Lara. Thank you, everyone, for still having the energy to continue. This is a little bit of a confessional moment / lecture / talking about some of my feminist fears, weird situationship or relationship I have with textile and maybe womanhood, and both intertwined together. So let's unpack while the tea is hot. So, what is the difference? I took some, I Googled it, but now everything is powered by Gemini, so I didn't really like these definitions that came out first. I think they're bad. I don't necessarily agree it's a good definition that the Gemini gave me, but every time I refreshed it, I got a different one, so I just quit and gave you both of these. The idea is that one lacks clear labels and structure and is maybe more fluid, but then again, it kind of means that you would want to be well defined within a situationship with a person, object, or topic, or maybe a fiber of itself. But the greatest love story of all time, potentially, it's very subjective and can be fictional or real life, and it can be very fatalistic. And maybe, I don't know, I don't think either of them are necessarily good. Both seem toxic, but there comes a point in every relation between two atoms, I guess, or people or topics where they have to define in what kind of relationship they are. And it's always usually at a tipping point. And this is something also that happened with textiles. But before I go into, I won't be going into the history of textile art. For us, for the sake of this lasting only 30 minutes and being digestible, we will start with the beginning of the 20th century as a starting point for this lecture. And there was a tipping point around that time that I will talk about, but first I will address for maybe also you to get to know me better, what is my relationship with textiles? And I guess there have been many mornings like Tracy Amon's artwork and my own relationship with this medium. To tell you honestly, I've had complicated history. Partially, I believe it doesn't help that I have curly hair and I'm white and from Eastern Europe, and that, that I used to wear a lot more colorful clothes, but living in Slovakia now, my attire is a lot more toned down, so I also seem more professional, I would say. But to be honest, there was this big gap. I think I went to an art high school and I went to a textile department which was focused on both fashion and textile. There is a difference, and my family was really confused why this and not fashion. But later on, when I chose to study textile design at the Academy of Applied Arts in Belgrade, but already during that time, I felt really uncomfortable in this position of being a woman creating in the medium that is already mainly women in the atelier. That if you look at even Bauhaus, which is, I would say, one of the first or known as the first European school where women were invited to be part of the same artist groups, women were invited mainly to, or how can I say this nicely, advised to that it is better for them to study textiles and ceramics because it just makes more sense than to do something maybe more conceptual or thought-provoking. But I also was never at ease because I had this suspicion that maybe there should be room for more men to be doing this, cis, maybe straight men to be doing also textile work. But then there are, and they're usually very famous from different fields, and therefore they're not really textile artists. They just work with textiles at some point as a cool thing. I often wondered, can this practice of creating within the medium be fully emancipated from its gendered labor division and kind of the recent history that we've been associating with, let's say, domesticity, or the way that still to this day, mostly, if you look at the recent rediscovery or popularity of textile art in biennials or big shows, it's usually done by women, indigenous groups, or queer people. So it's like, am I in the right to be here, or should I be somewhere else maybe opposing this? But I somehow ended up coming back to it often. And even though I did my master's in intermedia and I tried to do, or I did do a lot of more conceptual art, video art, different kind of, to communicate with different means, I would somehow find myself still be in maybe the campy or tactile, something related to textiles, and what made them bad to use as a feminist artist. Like, can I be a feminist artist and consider myself feminist and yet be working in this type of medium? Of course I can, but it just took a while to come to this notion. So in order to start, maybe, Kulisha Wood is sending you a digital heart. I would say that this ornament in crime essay that probably you were forced to read at some point of your education has a lot
to do. It was by Adolf Loos, and it came out in early 20th century. And it was actually about, I would say that he's the reason why a lot of modernist buildings look like this, and they're stripped of any ornament, but also clothes. But within this essay, he speaks about the ornament being excessive. He even calls it primitive and degenerate, a waste of labor, time, and that the modern man has no time or space in his life for such things of really no value other than decorative, and that serve as reminders of the past times. Machines are here. We can make stuff fast. We don't need to waste time. And in this essay, he's even going to a shoemaker that's creating artisan shoes, beautiful, from leather in his street. And he offers to pay the price for the ornament and for the handiwork of the hands, but begs the craft person not to do it, to teach them a lesson about time is money, this is wasteful, you should be maybe changing the way you think. And within this critique, he's linking ornament to feminine, primitive, emotional, and modernism is masculine, rational, and progressive. Well, needless to say, a lot of feminist theorists disagree with him and argue that ornament is not a crime, but a record of memory, culture, skill, and care, a testimony to non-Western transmission of knowledge, non-oral histories, and that this tends fed into a larger system of gendered exclusion in art history. This is a really nice Le Corbusier Villa Savoy, but these are the kind of forms that Adolf Loos envisioned for a rational modern man. I guess the woman is extension of that as well as society, but this was the idea. So there was also this moment a little bit prior to this essay where there was the development of the ideology of femininity and how is femininity constructed, and what does it what is the ideology of femininity actually? So in this whole period, 17th to 19th century, embroidery and a lot of other pastime / functional object creating methods played an important role in shaping what it meant to be a good woman, good girl, a good member of the society, maybe even somebody that's well-spoken and, you know, to be well-married as well. So there was actually a lot of pressure on women to know how to embroider. And if you ever tried embroidery, there's this thing that it is kind of easy to, well, you can learn the stitches itself, and there is cross-stitching where you get kind of a shablon that you follow, and it's very easy, it's just an X. But then there are other types of stitches that you can use to create very elaborate designs, meaning that you can show off in your house. But then there's this thing of what does the background look of these embroideries, and this is kind of what shows if you're really skilled and are you paying attention to all of these details. And then there's also this another leveling within the good craft maker, homemaker actually, because a lot of it is just to stay within the private place. And this is kind of where handicrafts and women are invited but also kept within the private spaces of home, whereas art, or even at this point design, is something that is for the public spaces and it is reserved for men. And so women are subjected to this repetitive labor and inside, which is actually craft, something that is manual, decorative, domestic, and usually feminine. So this category of craft, I will speak about it a bit more, even though I'm not sure if everybody is kind of sick of this topic again of high, low art, craft art, studio craft. There were so many differences trying to bridge this gap and kind of, is it okay to be a craft person or not? What is high or low art? The politics of it. And what is interesting is that the embroidery of feminist art was at once a political act, retrieving lost female histories and channeling dominant arc hierarchies in the 70s, when it kind of started regaining. And this is what Rosita Parker talks about in her book, The Subversive Stitch, which came out in the 80s, and that is actually making, and the beginnings is actually wrote with her and Pollock about this kind of the ideology of femininity and how it was a submissive stitch, but she uses examples of the 20th century artists, well, second half mostly, that use the stitch to subvert and create maybe different pathways and reinforce care, memory, and intergenerational knowledge through these practices as core avenues of feminism. And it's maybe one of the images that was circulating around what would it look like to be a good woman, girl, embroiderer. Again, a lexicon of craft is complicated. There was at one point the idea that craft is definitely something that is easily replicated, that you don't need to know much about, you don't need a thinking process. Your political stance don't need to be visible through it. Your ideology is erased. What is necessary is that you are the master of the material and you can basically do it kind of without too much thought. So there were these craft people that were closer to the artist and that thought that they're better. So there was the idea of creating the word studio craft, but this also really kind of wanted to elevate craft, but it's problematic because then it took it further away from the domestic space and from other crafters creating. So there was actually a bigger gap within people that are creating objects. This piece by Judy Chicago, The Dinner Party, is one of the first pieces that is considered to be, it was supposed to celebrate crafts, women, crafters, handicrafters that made it into the institutions. Judy Chicago worked with, I think, 400 people to actually create this work with the ceramics and textiles. But later on, it turned out that a lot of the embroiderers that worked with her were unhappy with the conditions that they were given, and that Judy did a bit treat it as, well, I'm the artist, you know. What do you want? And now it's actually in Brooklyn Museum, if you want to go see it. So it's also one of the first pieces that was this huge combination and maybe outsourcing, but later on really debated, was it fair or not? So Julia Bryan Wilson thinks of this a bit differently. She thinks that textiles can be, or yarn itself, can be activated, stretched in many ideological directions. And what I'm trying to do within my research thesis is actually try and figure out if there is kind of a chart or a guidebook that one can use to check in with the little bad feminist demon in their curator artist body when they want to work with someone or develop a certain practice. And so we have to be wary of the fact that many mediums, but especially textiles and fiber art in this case, throughout history played many roles, even at the same time and overlapping. So even to this day, but we will talk about it in the next slide, but textiles were potentially complicit with anti-feminist regimes and domesticity, with promoting traditional values, staying at home, working with hands, being present. But then again, also that can be revolutionary, and it can seem quite complicated how to go about it. It can be a revolt or a craftivism kind of idea. The term was coined in 2004, where you use your time to, and something that is maybe can be done at home, to fight the capitalist system. So there's this really nice ladies sewing circle and terrorist society that was an actual thing, I believe, in LA, but somewhere in the US in the 70s. And I like this feminist kind of humor to this. Well, first it's ladies, it's not women's. So it's already a bit calling for, you know, no, it's like, it's not empowering. It's, we need them to have their own pace and time. It's a lady. Sewing Circle and Terrorist Society. And it introduces the idea that the needle itself or the thread can be fatal or potentially dangerous or destructive. And this circle has been going on for a long time. But what happened later on, of course, with this symbol, even though it started off as a feminist circle, it was so iconic that you could see people from the Republican Party also wearing this. It became kind of like, I don't know what would be a good example of it today, but I'm sure we have many. So there is also this idea that you're no longer in, it's no longer yours once the idea is out. And what is interesting that Etsy, the site, which we also have to talk about when there was this kind of in the early 2000s, especially with Pinterest and Instagram, there was this surge again of people knitting and crocheting in home and finding these new hobbies of buying a bunch of yarn and using their free time to create, practice, take time, be slow in the moment, but then also create a lot of stuff that could be potentially sold, could be made some money on the side. And Etsy was ideally envisioned as a place where people would be selling their handicrafts, but soon enough it became a place where people would maybe just kind of, it was also meant to fight consumerism to a certain point, like shop with your local crafty person or artist, don't go and buy H&M, but somehow these things have a way of doing their own thing, and soon enough people just started basically embellishing additional stuff onto already bought clothes and just going back to pre-ordering stuff and maybe just doing their designs onto it. It wasn't left to be this place where you can sell your pieces and kind of bridge maybe this gap where people that create within the home can have part of the market. But also when we just talk about this idea of what is handmade, I think we get really lost in the idea that what is handmade is something that is crocheted or embroidered, but we don't think of fast fashion as handmade, but it is all handmade. It's just very poorly paid and far away, and you don't see those hands that are making it, but it's all handmade, everything that you're wearing here. Yeah, I'm not sure anything can be not handmade at this point. But then there is also this idea of when we talk about these things, why is one thing then supposed to be on Etsy valued way more? And but I guess it's labor laws, as Agnes was saying. But this is maybe a good, the woman that coined the term, Betsy Greer, craftivism, it's even suspicious that the term became inflated as a political concept and used loosely. Well, she coined it in 2004, but she realized that it became something that was then used a lot for, you have a commercial music festival, then you bring people to create stuff, but it's like, I don't know, maybe not as political as intended, but maybe more consumerist and based for the market. And what Julia Bryan Wilson talks about a lot in her work is that she's trying to see where is this space or the dream of a feminist art world in which hobby and fine art objects are given equal attention, it's not yet been fulfilled, but she hopes that this place can be created if we look at this problem maybe within the properties of what textiles or cloths or yarns can do on their own, and not take it as something impenetrable. It's very malleable, stretchy, and we need to be wary of these nuances when we're talking about textile art. So maybe this was also an example, maybe one image that's circled the world a lot with the craftivist movements, where all of these squares were collected and essentially used to take away some of the aggressive power from a military object, which is a tank, and maybe use some form of subversive female pink, crafty, witty humor, or maybe even a statement to cover it and take away its potential. Another author that I think talks about this topic very nicely is Julia Skelly, and she talks about the bad feminists and bad women a lot. And in her stance, what is important is to celebrate these bad habits, or what is somehow stepping away from the domesticated, nice image of a woman artist or a crafty person, or just a good image of a woman creating for the in the privacy of her home, but in a sense that what she and what I found to agree with, and which is a good standpoint, is that we have to look at if the artworks are somehow glorifying domesticity and traditional values, then they're definitely not feminist. If they're not doing this, then they're potentially feminist. But it's still not a definition that they are. And here's one work from Nava Lubelski, Clumsy, where kind of the moment of domestic failure is embellished and encouraged, bedazzled, celebrated, rather than washed and stored away. Yes, she gives examples of deliberate bad behavior, and she gives this back again empowerment to the term craft, and using craft as something that can be very powerful and revolting even against this binary of high-low art and craft. And she speaks about excess in contemporary feminist textile art, a lot of campiness, a lot of rhinestones, women doing cocaine, overeating, indulging in all the not so nice behaviors, but yet still being maybe in their rosy eras. This was a work by Orly Kogan, Valentina Janu, Czech artist. She also works a lot with this idea of the illusions or delusions, but this is a button that's bursting open, and underneath it are actually bedazzled sequences. Qualisha Wood is a young artist from New York and Philadelphia, and she's working with this idea that her image is the main image in all of her work. She's working with digital jacquards, but she's treating herself as a virus almost, or attacking the system. And what does it mean to be a big, beautiful black female body on a huge tapestry? And she's working with glitches and comparing it to the nervousness, I guess, of the systems that we live in, and of computer systems, as she did grow up on the internet a lot and heard a bunch of stuff on the internet like slurs and callings. This is a work from a Czechoslovak / Balkan, maybe a bit even German collective, Björnsonova, where they use textiles to create these spaces of exchanging stories of cat ladies society, almost. And then there are some more difficult works that I also believe are feminist, like of Teresa Margolis, that would go to drug cartel places after crimes would take place and use textiles to absorb what is left of the bodies, the soil. And she even represented at the 53rd Venice Biennial, and there was a room in which the families of the victims were constantly cleaning the floors with residues also of the corpses. So these are maybe some of the things that I think we can talk about, which is like, or that I am personally interested in when I'm researching textile artists and not necessarily textile artists, but any artist. But back to my own relationship, this is going to be very fast. I know we're running out of time. Back to maybe my own relationship and how I try to deal with it, knowing all of these things. And I don't even know if what I'm doing is the right way or not. But I'm also a curator and an artist, which is a really bad cliche. And I am now a researcher as I'm doing a PhD and an educator. Sounds so cool, like, but it's not. So one of the exhibitions that I'm quite proud of is The Rotten Smell Is You, which was actually, it had 2 iterations, one in Kunsthale Bratislava and the other one, which was a bit different with the artist selection in Cultural Center of Belgrade, and it houses this idea that there is a problem within the feminist household, which is consisting of 4 generations living under the same roof, not really discussing problems, intergenerational traumas, what they're not getting along with, and it's making the movement basically unstable. And so, but there are a lot of problems. So mainly I focused on what is the main difference between 2nd and 3rd generation feminists with the 4th wave feminists. And I kind of wanted to focus on the 3 topics that cause most interior turmoil in this household, which is transness, sex work, and hyperfemininity. Those are kind of like really hot potatoes to throw around in this house. So we had beautiful artists' work showcased. And then another thing that I tried to do as an educator, this was part of Darker, Lighter, Puffy, Flat exhibition in Kunsthalle Wien. And that is where I try to use embroidery as maybe a protest, but also something that people can learn under the guise of learning a new skill. But what I'm trying to do is get them to listen about maybe the artworks and kind of force them to find out something about it's a manipulation basically, but they get to learn how to embroider. I'm very patient with them. People say they have fun, but the idea is that we get to protest the fast pace. We get to realize that even if you take small steps, really tiny ones, like less than half a centimeter, you will create an image. This image is okay, it can grow, but there will be an image with small steps. We don't have to be stressed about the results in the end. We just need to take it day by day, and we have to keep this in mind, especially when we're protesting. And maybe me as an artist, I guess this is one of my last solo shows. This is the last thing I'll show you. It was in Maribor in Obrad Gallery, where I myself tried to probe the material, or maybe what is behind kind of all of my ideas behind this, the combined industry, malleability, and function of textiles that we surround ourselves with, but also kind of not so nice past of it, or maybe the dirty problems that we're stringing along, maybe from the sweatshops, maybe from its own gendered history that's stinging. But then also it has these few elements or objects that are a combination of upholstery and embroidery and hand lacerations, but that are stretching or warping the possibilities of the weft within the weave or the knit in a knitted garment, and that are using some of the shapes maybe that we would see when we're creating patterns for a piece of clothing. That's it. I don't have a thank you slide, but thank you.
Are there any questions right now, or we move on and yeah? Okay, then maybe later in the discussion. What was the time with Elizabeth? 13.
Everybody tired, and afraid, so don't be. Time is. I'm always having big fear over time, so they will take it more dynamical. Or I don't know how many of you know us. We are God's Entertainment. Actually, we are more than 2 of us, and we are working since now. Your mic doesn't work. My mic doesn't work, so but I'm loud. It's just for the people outside. I turn it off, so they will think like, okay, I'm talking something very political, so we are afraid, so that nobody can hear. So we prepare something, but we will keep it like everybody looks super nice. So my name is Maya, this is Boris, my colleague, and I'm very happy that we hear so much about garments, weaving, also lots of from Bosnian artists, like about remembering and how to deal with the political war crimes and how to talk after it. We were actually born in another country, so I thought like when Miloš invited us, okay, fear, we are always somehow afraid of something like in growing up, but when I was a child, there was an experiment how to show us how to deal with fear. So, yeah. So there was like, if you are alone, somebody can break you really easy. So it's like, no matter, but if you are together with a lot of, it becomes more difficult to break you. So this was like how, yeah, you can try it. Maybe I'm not as a child. So this was like probably, it's also the answer why I choose not to be a solo artist, to work in a collective. So like, it's also...
I think so would be works also now for New York.
Yeah, probably. This is also maybe the Mamdani also did this, like, okay, if we are many, it's like not so easy to broke us, or, and it's also not, sometimes not also easy how to deal with so many, but like, yeah. But fear is also the mind killer, like, we heard a lot of Smirna, like she was born in a war, I was 13 years old, and fear can turn even to that you really do not recognize the real fear. So for example, when I was in a school, we were more afraid of a math exam than of the grenades. So we were so happy if the alarm were going on, like, yeah, no math, but like no carry if we were going to die. Or like example, in my house, we always had the competition who is going to be the first in the row for the bread. But I never thought like, okay, what will be if I don't get the bread? So this is also like how to deal with this, but like when you are growing up, so the fear can turn in a different political, more stronger and powerful meaning, and can be a mind killer, and especially now in this time like we need our minds more than ever, I would say, especially in Europe, and like in Austria, and how Austria is dealing with other political situation. And also today it reminds me, because you mentioned that everybody now wants to hear about Bosnia war crimes and etc., etc. So this becomes like to deal past genocides more en vogue than to focus on the actual conflicts in Gaza, in Sudan, in Congo. So like even a few weeks ago in Vienna, they opened the monument, the Srebrenica flower, which is like wonderful, but it's somehow always like, when we come also to this, like, okay, which side are we always want to deal? It's easier to deal about past because it already happened, and why are we so afraid to deal about the current situation? So maybe also to stop something or to change something. Yeah.
I mean, I can just add it for this. It's really nice. This is also the picture what we use it for this Sichet for the inviting of Miloš and Co. And for this magazine, also dealing with this question of double moral and Austrian neutrality. Like, yes, we can dealing about genocide, but not about actually genocide. We're dealing about genocide what's already happened. And this is how works actually Austrian politics and also Western politics in connection to USA and all these countries. They are supporting already genocide in Gaza. And this is actually also sitting, the picture I think so talking about by itself, and we don't have to describe this, how you already sitting in two chairs and working with this very, very specific and sensitive topics of politics in Austrian, and already talking about neutrality. That's actually, if we're gonna go back to remember how they came to this neutrality, actually only with help of non-aligned countries. This was 1970s. It's of course Austria has also different politicians and different politic of neutrality, but even they're using this now, and with knowledge that they help the countries help it to come to this neutrality, and using this privilege to be neutrality, active neutrality of Austrian, and now dealing with these countries and with agreement that's these countries completely how you say like colonial, insane colonial way to take all of these countries and even be complicit in genocide. And this is, and for me it's very interesting also for our collective how we're working with the pictures, probably difference that you are working what we saw today. You're working in this kind of fine art differently, and we are working mostly in performance art and trying to find very clearly pictures of with the body, and then and going to the open space and do that, like this or this other one, and also making the second part, what we also thinking about that, how works propaganda. It's interesting because it's propaganda can use it also in positive way, but also in very negative way. And every of these ideas, propaganda, also what we are using, like repetition, the art, through the art, and then to watching how it works in the political way is really all time ongoing. And as we took, for example, this was the last very old project. You see that mostly 10 years like that, and it was like in the time of this like
so-called migrant refugees
problem, and this Balkan route, I don't know you remember, and this was actually the camp from old Chancellor of Austria. It's called Niemand hat euch eingeladen, nobody invited you. And this was started like with this propaganda. And every time has own propaganda and using this kind of making the fear. And also what we are doing also like to prepare to show the people how easy is it to how you say, to dealing with fear and make the audience very so quickly to this condition. Oh, it's gonna happen something, and people really draw in this very easy in the condition.
But at the same time, like people are like. We are like I mentioned, working 20 years in Austria, and we are coming from different parts of Balkan and even like Eastern Europe, and some people are also from Austria and Germany. So like the group is like switching from 6 to 10, and it depends on the project. But like when we go back to the photo, it's like always being afraid or like presenting through media fear about migrants, about the Islam, about the Palestinians, so creating monsters. So what we actually did, we create the national monster of Austria, like using this Ku Klux Klan, which actually as photo works also, but in a live performance, when there are like many white Ku Klux Klan, they build like really perfect white screen that you can project a lot of stuff. So they were used also like a screen in a performance room. So like how to deal, like even to accept that people who lives and works in Vienna, and also we prefer more to mention and to criticize, or like how to live together here and not where we are born or where we are coming from.
We can also just small short to show you how we doing the small video during this performance or for this performance. Because
people were afraid of the people not knowing them, people who are like fleeing from war and other stuff. So we just create with the simple camera movements through the city, like the war already came even in Vienna. So
this was like preparing the people, because the performance located and taken the place in the how you say, underground bunker. Sicherheitsbunker in German. Oh, we don't have sound.
I do have sound for the live stream.
Yeah, then without sound, these do not have sound. Yeah, because it would be
muss ich das, ja, moramo tu negdje definirati, tu.
Hier und dann Ton.
Ja. Cool. Sorry.
No,
very.
No.
Yeah, HDMI, yeah.
I think
it's HDMI, it's good idea. Okay. Now it's HDMI.
There was a bit. You did change something. So otherwise I can try to present live the feeling of.
But I have just sound from laptop. This is from
just
here.
from laptop, yeah.
Huh?
Ah, really? Oh, okay, sorry.
Nice, you're from down.
aus dem Zug jetzt aussteigen, weil der fährt nicht mehr weiter. Was ist los? Hier fahren alle mit dem Bus weg. Wo soll ich hinkommen? Hast du die Flugzeugierung? Wo ist der Sicherheitspunkt? Wo ist der Sicherheitspunkt? Hallo? Hallo? It's in German. I don't know how many of you speak German.
Jetzt ist das, was bei dem anderen war, hier bei uns anders. Und niemand weiß, wer der andere eigentlich jetzt ist. Und wie man sich in dieser Anderszeit anders verhalten soll. Es gibt keine Menschen mehr hier.
LT.art. It was funny in this time when we did this video, like the atmosphere and media, like especially from the right wing, the FPÖ, was really like that some kind of war is going to come. And like we also made the research, like I was asking on the street, like random people, if they know where is the safety bunker, and nobody knew it. Like, and I think like even in Sarajevo, like everybody would know at least one, like just in this, to describe how far actually this fear is, but how at the same time it's present. So also some kind of dealing always this in between.
Yeah, sorry for the sound. I think that with sound makes more.
No, but it was just easy, like just having the planes and grenades and something happening, and then yeah. So we can also, like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's actually a very small connection to this. Also, this topic of migrants. Every time
identity.
Migrants. This was one of last placard series for this last election in Austria in 2024. And we started to campaign like with this like same propaganda narrative, and do it in the through this whole city, make the placard series.
And on one side is like, hey, don't be afraid, my name is not a migrant. So which means there is also a person behind this. And on another side, it's always this kind of economic, not this kind of, but this economical Europe knows that they need people, and especially working class people, but they still do not want, since the long era of the Gastarbeiter, they are still not ready somehow when we are reading what the politicians are now even more worst talking about this. So like you can see, we are always dealing also about these fears of Austria and their past, and how to deal with diversity of people, because people are coming in and moving out. So there was a big installation made of a soil of Austria, in a form of Austria, but surrounded with, I don't know in English, Stacheldraht. You know, this used for the borders especially. So with the light, sometimes it looks really nice, like a waterfall, but at the same time, it's like also like how to make a capsule around it and still stay isolated, and like not getting all these new other monsters.
Yeah, it was also in the frame of huge exhibition. It's called also working with the propaganda entartet. This is a typical German
from the Nazi.
From the Nazi, actually built the subject of
all the English word. It's
I'm not sure that.
I forget there is.
Do you know somebody what's
entartet art? There was when English? The Nazi German decided which art is not in this German national thinking. I really do not know the English.
Because they took in Munich also in this work of propaganda Goebbels, they took also very huge exhibition. They took all artists that was left, or mostly of them was like communist, Jewish, or different kind of people that really how you say, fighting against Nazi. They took all these artworks of them and then make the exhibition. How have to not be art of Nazi in the Nazi for the Nazi time, and this was like also for us like a point. How can we using 2000 in this time also like preparing of election and all this propaganda in Austrian politics, how they also dealing with that. And also one of them, it's actually interesting, this is a typical Austrian weapon, I mean this symbol, but it's what we took, it's very huge, it was 6 meters high and very like so ugly, and but we put this the chain it doesn't we doesn't so broke this chain actually.
Because in the original one, the chain is broken, so
Yeah.
now again, like it came together to this.
Because they are really like proud of that. That's the broke it like this, and again is the Versöhnungstheater. I mean, this idea of like we have freedom and never gonna be again like this this time coming, and they broke it like, and this is also symbol of Austrian flag and stuff. And also this was also the idea about carpet what we weave it. I talk already to you, we weave it already mostly then I think so 14 carpets already, different carpet weave it, and mostly of them was national flag. And the idea was called Under the Carpet project. Actually that's clearly in the idea of or on title of the project, everything what's people like, and also in politics what we have, what we know, like put it on the carpet, like everything what we have to know, don't have to know. And the idea was like also the Austrian politician guys, they said because very big discussions in Austria about this who can vote and who cannot vote in Austrian society, and this is everything together also connected with the citizenship. And citizenship is very crazy in Austria to get it, and people are also, if they doesn't want to, they have it, they're gonna be like, so how you say, talk it like, they're gonna be like every time in kind of corner of no integration, this society, and no good citizens. And one of ministers said, I think so, this is what for the Austrian citizenship, you have to very hard work and how you say, to earn it like that. And we thought, okay, we do it really huge carpet, and we really hard work it for this.
So now we have the biggest Austrian passport, like, then nobody of
Yeah, this is also typical for this, what we're working with is typical. And it's funny because we took this sculpture with a friend, one of God's Entertainment, and as we took this performance, nobody asking about this
the hand movement. Actually, everybody was very like being sorry with him, like, oh, what happened to you? And the whole evening he was standing in front of you in this like very famous Nazi hand movement. I don't want to do it now because we're in live stream. And then, yeah, like, so then it will be like with the Lars von Trier, like the wrong press conference, so no. So, and we called it like, can you switch back? Just like we called it, this is not the right, or the avant-garde. And like now this, actually Kampnagel, the huge center for art and culture in Hamburg, they wanted that we are doing like different covers now in different topics to what's going on in Germany, because especially now is also that somehow this classical, I would say like the classical Nazi, the right, is becoming some kind of mutiert, that we cannot even recognize it, that even the middle of the society is even also going more to the right, and also it's like to be like to realize that we can be wanted again, not with the same strategies, but it's somehow some stuff are repeating themselves.
I don't know if we're gonna stop little. I don't know how much time we have.
We don't have, huh? No, we just go back to the white. Okay. The last, we have a lot of going with the fear. It was the last one we can show.
We can show, for example,
the last one for the piece.
One small video about white flag, because it's very actually now about freedom. And about
and how to deal
the peace.
The peace, especially in the Middle East and in German-speaking area.
This
so
also.
This was the cut.
Yeah,
but switch to video.
Yeah, I switched to the video now, and because we took already videos for this carpet project, what I already described about many carpets vivid, and the exhibition actually was under the carpet. That's very easy, like by when you're going bring the car for the also to fix it. Also, we had the small how you say so small stuff to driving under the carpet, like in the car repairing, like, and then laying under this small table, and then slowly like move it in the rotated under the carpet. And all works was under the carpet. And one of them we make the trilogy in Bosnian, and the small mounts with a German, very German, typical German Shepherd dog, and took it. Trilogy is actually basically from Yugoslavian flag, European flag, and now the white flag.
And this was for me, like I remember when like I was talking to a friend who is from Germany, and we were discussing ceasefire as a problematic, because then I realized, okay, especially in a German-speaking area, when it comes to the war between Israel and Gaza, then even ceasefire becomes very problematic, because who is allowed to fight or who is not allowed to fight. So this is somehow, and again, like how to deal with the fear, breaking the rules, because normally, like in paragraph 9, you are not allowed to destroy any flags. So, okay, maybe the white flag, nobody care about the other flags, but if the dog does, then it's like a different. So just maybe for the end, and actually the other flags he loved much more than the white flags. Like for the European Union, he was ready to destroy it immediately.
It's like partisan. But he was really partisan.
this for
Yeah, this is how it looks like. The European Union
don't have time.
heated
Time is
probably half
people
hours.
are afraid, like, okay.
No, I want to just say that but it's really funny. European Union, it's really heated half hours, and we was really scared about his healthy because really
How to put down
Yeah.
to digest the European Union in the stomach of a German Shepherd, like. So.
Okay.
No questions, we don't have time, huh?
I would maybe check with, yeah, maybe. I would maybe check with how you're feeling, if you have strength and concentration for like final discussion with all the speakers, or I don't know. We are past the time of the conference, but yeah, if you feel like maybe we can still have some closing remarks and yeah, okay.
So any question or
No, all together.
All together.
And I think we can.
But we can stand
Yeah,
up.
or
Yeah.
just bring the chairs in front.
I'll take my coat. Si vidjela? Evo ti poklonim. Branko, kockice. Pa se prezime jebote. Jesi li barbar su? Hvala.
maybe I show you this little bit, this idea about we didn't have time now, but maybe I show you just for the short, the idea of it's very
To sam provjerila. Ja mislim da tu.
Ljubim te.
Yeah, it's actually it's like I don't know. Do you know this beautiful work of Francis
Agnes.
He took in Israel with the green light, and this is actually from old William.
Vi ćete razvojeni. Vi ćete razvojeni.
Ma ja ne čemu ovo. Čemu kolektiv ako moram uvijek
raditi? I don't know, 10 kilometers like this and going there.
Ne slučajno. Mi je rekao imamo različite mišljenje. Te on kaže nije to. Ti isto razmišljaš. A ja sam Maja. Nije, ti si Lara, Maja. Čekajte. Mi smo se nismo rukovali, ali...
Really? Crazy.
Ste već pili zajedno? Već ste pili zajedno, par.
Nismo.
I love it.
A ja smo ja. Ja sam prvo mislila da je onaj, kako se zove stari bosanski napitak, voze. Tu me sestra jednom na terapiji, mene je to grozno, ali nije.
To je i nešto rekao da je voze.
I zdravo je to, jer to je isto neka vrsta fermentiranja. Što ljudi sad dolaze? Ne znam da je glina. Znaš zašto? Što ovdje ima kupca, u DM, highway. Jer pošto ja pušim i kada prije...
Thank you for staying, and let's just finish this up. Just my reflection is that it is such interesting topics, and to see from different angles, your angles to the very important things. And Baltics and Balkans, we have some shared histories, some very interesting independent histories, and it is of a great importance to speak about it and tell all the little things, like I didn't even know that you were scared more of math tests rather than grenades and so on. So all these details are connecting us in some ways. So should we just maybe start? I don't know.
Male in the middle.
Yeah,
This
so
is
thinking
awesome.
about it.
It's not cool.
Should we just start from the audience questions if you have?
maybe
help.
we
Yeah.
open it up if
Well, the latest we didn't give time to yet. No, did it? Yeah, we did.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so two last presentations.
and if anybody has one.
Yeah.
So cool, now we are here, nobody, everybody is afraid.
Yeah, we're
The theme is fear, you know.
So you are so lazy. Maybe louder.
Yeah, maybe we should wake
Nobody
up.
hear you.
Let's dance, I don't know. Okay, maybe.
Baltic countries. I just recently was in Estonia and I was at the exhibition and whenever they clap like this. What's wrong with these people? So I think like everybody who are like from Balkans are not speaking loudly.
But the Balkans, we are speaking.
No, but maybe we are louder because we don't hear anymore good because of all the grenades and stuff, like, you know.
Maybe.
Yeah, but now we switch to the blonde.
Now it's kind of a fight has started.
Maybe a question for, I will break the ice. Maybe the question for all of you, because we saw many different perspectives and different histories, also depending on the region where you're from and the region that you're focusing on. But I think maybe the connecting line was how much we can learn about the current situations from history, from some situations. So maybe to open up the discussion, so you all deal a lot with the archive, or maybe also kind of relating it to the current political atmospheres. And maybe questions for all of you: how do you see your practices and what you kind of try to achieve through doing your project, through doing them? Also, I think your perspective was really good and good closing kind of the last session, because it kind of opened up also the question of current political climate, especially also in Austria, with Austrian institutions. So I would just maybe you can start with expanding on that, and then we can also go through the more like your views with the archives. But how do you see, my question would be, how do you see your practices, what kind of impact you want that they have, and maybe how they are perceived from the institutions, from the, you mentioned that now it's like more interest, but maybe it would be interesting to hear from you how these historical narratives can actually influence how we think today and how we kind of, yeah.
I would like to start with it's huge field what you now actually said, but I want to just maybe a little bit connected to this, what you mean currently atmosphere in Austrian, and actually it's not far away from the other countries, mostly German-speaking area, and in Western Europe. It's actually, I'm really wondering how much is it discourse of political discourse is, how you say, move it to the right. If you're watching, for example, what's happened now about New York and then election about a measure of Sahran Mamdani, it's really clearly how far away actually the point of middle like not too much left or too much right, what they are really like proud about that Austrian, they said they are really in the middle. I thought I gonna be crazy as I read it last days, the newspapers and how they're dealing with this atmosphere, and mostly of them it's every of them titled first what they titled Muslim. This is the mostly of papers doing that, Muslim, and very strong left, like that. What the fuck? I mean, when you read that and when you're watching what he's talking, it's completely social politic, nothing else. But it's really interesting how they dealing, and of course they come also anti-Semitic, anti-Israel, and mostly this adjective. And also in German media, you can also read it, gescheiterte Rapper. I mean, this is so crazy how they really took this atmosphere, and then of course they're waiting for this many of clicks and many of comments, and that's how they're dealing now today the daily politic. I think so, and also from really like newspaper, like they like probably they are left, for example, Standard or Profil or like Courier, and all of them it's mostly point of this point, like it's really complicated to talking with these guys in the main so discourse, not like in the small discourse like here. I mean, probably we are a small bubble of them, but it's for us also when we dealing in the open space and we dealing mostly of our projects dealing in the public space and open space. I really have completely I feel it since 10 years ago, completely changed the point of idea of humanity, of human rights, of to be human, or to have dialogue with each other, or to live with each other, completely going in the right. This is my opinion, and I just as I using a lot of now, so reading very much about daily politics and generally about politics, of course, about war and Austrian position and all stuff, what really surrounded me, and also what's for me that's coming now to the point what I want to say. This was just introduction. It's very clean, not too long. It's about left. It's really, I mean, I like in the go in some kind of like Prater when you're going to this how you say, this ghost house, and left society. That's I really believe it last years about, or last decade, about the left population and people around me. And we're dealing with same topics, and friend of me, mostly of them. And now I really can completely make so difference between this, what is really left. This is so small piece of them, it's really left. Mostly of them are really have problems and cannot really compare with this problematic. And mostly of them, it's really in the problem of Gaza, completely changed opinions of what's mean left. I mean, it's really serious.
But like to come, because we work together, just to come like in, because you was asking about institutions, and even like if you even go to the public space, you need permission. What really changed is that normally, like there is this, I know it in the German, the right, that the art has no borders and the power of to say everything. But now it's really in the art institutions, you can freely feel the atmosphere, some kind of fear, but nobody actually, you cannot recognize like what are you thinking and me, and which kind of like, because we are working in a performance and everybody's like somehow afraid, like which topic are you going to mention? And so on the one side, maybe the institutions, they are afraid of the fundings, and I don't know what they are actually afraid of the position to something. And some artists are also afraid that if they do not follow the new rules, just call it like this, that they are also going to lose it. But the actual problem is that we are like having fear of something we do not know what is going to happen. So this is for me the worst case scenario. So that even not tell it or not try it or not deal with something to be already a fear. And this, for my understanding of art, it do not belongs in the art field.
Yeah, actually, the silencing. Yeah, that's the point. Actually.
But let's
maybe go to a more optimistic point of view. Or maybe I was thinking about when also you were speaking and Lara proposed the question if there are some maybe methodologies that we can use in our art practice or that we heard of in art schools to implement and somehow build upon or create a better space, let's say. Up until a few years ago, there was a lot of talk about horizontal structures and my brain is not working with parallel democracy, but sorry, it's already late. But we heard about this a lot. We were all, I'm guessing, part of some workshops, some discourses, some lectures where this was topics that were being thrown around in kind of artistic fields or sociology groups. What I saw, and I was quite happy to see, maybe in my own backyard, as one would say, was with the student protests currently now happening all around in Serbia, which are functioning on the level of self-organization, plenum, everybody coming, who comes has a vote, and these students are organizing like that for a year now. And so I was a bit happy and surprised that, okay, maybe somebody also was at the same class as me, just smarter and decided to implement it or had better peers. But will it work? Like, what is even happening? Can we stay optimistic? Well, then I come back to maybe this methodology of just stitching little stitch by stitch and being part of now, like when I'm back home, I'm trying to be part of a zbor, which is an formal assembly of people from the, let's say, same neighborhood or borough, and participate in actions to alleviate once the students are tired and kind of listen to them. And what you learn also through that is similar what you get with the process of creating textiles, that especially if you work like me and I'm creating, let's say, objects that are somehow also invited into art spaces and institutions, that you have a lot of thinking time and then research, but then you get to work and then you're in the Zen process really for a while of really small repetitive movements or waiting for something to happen if you're working with clay, for instance, or waiting for something, I guess, to cure or dry or ferment. Something is happening, and if you're also constantly feeding into this machine and you're kind of out of it for a while and you're in this, it can hurt your back, you know. Like you can be in a bad position, but then you need a break. And that's when you need other people to step in and kind of realize. So I think that within our own practices and the circles that we are in, yes, we can implement these things for something other than creating art shows for our colleagues to see and then go back to them and again and again. I'm often questioning what's the point in this. Surely it doesn't have utility kind of value, but maybe the value is actually this, that we learn the artistic methodologies to contribute to society in a different way. And who knows, will it be successful? But if we keep on wondering instead of just continuing with the process, I don't think we'll know.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks. No, as you say, these tiny gestures, no, it's also what I'm thinking, because I come from performance art. Actually, my first 5 years were mostly like activism and performance art, and a lot of like things happening in public space outside of the gallery, outside of the whole fine arts context that I was really very against. Now I'm in it. And the decision to come there was also because I realized, okay, what is the point? Why am I doing this? Is to trick people to deal with reality. So I tricked you today to drink the clay, no? So it's like, in a way, to be this invitation to deal with the past, okay, but also to deal with the present. So sometimes thinking in this way, if I speak one language, which is outside of the gallery, it invites certain types of people. But then all these bubbles of the people that make decision, they stay in their own bubble and nobody speaks to them. So I was thinking, okay, how can I also hack the system and get into that bubble and then trick them into maybe slowly digesting something through these tiny gestures. So I also think about these methodologies where objects themselves can be like ritual invitations into conversations or into very simple things that we very commonly do in the Balkans to process trauma, which is like eating and drinking, very easily singing and storytelling. And all of these methodologies, they actually come from our ancestors. They are not something we learn and we have to put in an archive in a PhD, and I am also doing a PhD. So it's like we are literally trying to make a theory around something that already exists, and it's a living culture in my country, in my family, in my grandmother's practice. And that's somehow the irony of like, okay, now translating everything that we do in real life into theory so we can put it back into real life. And that's sometimes very, I'm feeling like I'm trying to flirt with too many people at the same time. But it's working sometimes. And and I believe what we can focus on is these tiny gestures and tiny invitations and tiny rituals and observing the relation maybe between the Baltics and the Balkans also. Like, I don't know so much about the Baltics, but also through your presentations and through, I spent one semester teaching in Latvia and Riga. I can see just like actually this presence of the trauma in the Balkan people is something that we are very loud about and we are very expressive about. And I feel there is a bit more shyness about expressing that maybe in the way that we do. So for me, it was like an interesting dialogue around similar topics such as war trenches that you also mentioned in your work, and how this culture and like history that is really far in the past related to this trauma affects our methodologies today. So it was really interesting to see the conversation between, even though, we're trying to have one right now. But yes.
Yeah. Maybe I can follow up on it because I felt also like talking so much about how Baltic people are more silent. I felt becoming more and more silent somehow. Maybe that's a trauma also. But I mean, but what I wanted to pick up on is also the idea of like translation and like what cultures need to be translated in certain institutions. So also like, I mean, talking about politics and like what gets spoken and what gets spaced somewhere. I was also like wondering about like the strategies of stealing attention or subverting attention to the regions that, as you said, like also why do you have to explain something that is a daily practice, but at the same time these daily practices haven't been given a possibility of creating a history and creating a lineage and have been often erased. So I also actually, I even try to avoid talking about states as a strategy, to also like not have the imperialistic politics always as the main players. So what I also like about this Baltic and Balkans is that we are totally avoiding the middle. I mean, why not? There's a lot of things we can talk about that are very related and should be given attention to, I think. So that was just my comment to what I was thinking. I don't know if another Baltic wants to say something.
Yeah, going away from the center is the strategy, and I feel like with my own practice is also like merging this academic and activist and artistic approaches are kind of trying to also widen up the publics that can actually reach out and talk and discuss these things. But it's also this kind of forbidden topics that I want to bring out. So it's kind of this, you know, like not comfortable, or like I don't feel like talking about this workers' rights in the Soviet past. Who cares about it? So this kind of, but maybe it is relevant to the today, to the contemporary issues, towards this kind of why we're so right-wing today, like in Lithuania, for example, why it's not you know, so maybe it has the kind of connection towards how we see our pasts, you know, and how we see and how we relate to the traumas that we experience. So, and how we kind of express them and suppress them. Like in the Baltics, it's more like suppressed, not expressed, I think. Maybe that's the difference. And yeah, so all these silences that surrounds us is quite problematic, and I think we need some ways to talk, even if it's not, you know, if it's an object or if it's a film or something. It's like through it, we kind of can tell the more nuanced way to kind of deal with how we how we see the past and what is now. Like that's like a completely terrible stuff.
Yeah, I think what was also common in your presentations was actually kind of dealing with these marginalized or knowledge or histories or invisible histories, and then kind of how to use them as a tool of resistance or a tool of rethinking current situations. So I think this was really nice and very empowering to hear. You actually covered all of my questions that I had prepared through your presentations and also through this discussion now. I don't know, Magda, if you have anything else, but
I have a lot, but I mean, that would take a long
maybe,
time.
yeah, maybe this is a good. It was actually a very nice ending, I think, to gather here and talk. But maybe we were very long, so maybe we stop here. And if somebody has some questions informally, we are here, and yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah,